Today I'll be talking about why this flannel is priced at nearly $4,000, along with showing some other pieces from Visvim I recently purchased. Visvim can often be a sort of mysterious brand, often criticized for its price of t-shirts and sweatshirts, even its hats and socks. And while I do think sometimes that criticism holds fair grounds, there is a clear selection of pieces that really hold their own weight for how they redefine modern standards of clothing fabrication. This is often done through dyeing techniques, ancient production methods, or simply using the highest quality materials possible. So the first item I'd like to talk about is actually a boot, and that will be their Fall/Winter 21 Poundmaker Boot. So this boot is actually made from a vegetable tanned horse leather upper and American cowhide. It features a day-night outsole and a handmade Goodyear welt. You can also see, if you look at the toe box, there's some really nice sort of damage processing to it, or leather processing in general. There's a sort of weathered look on all of the boots that Visvim has been making as of lately. I think it just like sort of gives it a built-in patina. In terms of comfort, I have worn these for miles walking and it's been perfect, no issues at all. I bought these used, but the beautiful thing about boots, unlike sneakers, not only do they match everything pretty easily, but if you wear out the soles, you can get them resoled and just keep doing that. And the uppers, because of how premium they are, should really hold up with time. It makes for a much more sustainable experience where you're not really going through as many different pairs of shoes as fast as you normally would. Like, I really hope that I get to own these for the next 20 to 30 years, if that. I just see myself wearing them all the time. The next piece I'd really like to cover that sort of falls into the category of museum pieces done by Visvim is their Fall/Winter 17 Highland zip. So it's the only wool one I've come across on the internet. Cotton is a bit more popular, but I actually really like the color blocking that they've done on this iteration of it. The cotton features a lot more lighter colors, I would say, and lighter pastels, while this just holds very dark, earthy colors. Even the wool, the blank wool, is an oatmeal sort of color. And looking at these stripes, you sort of see these zigzags. What makes this so unique is that this is actually Peruvian wool that is sourced from Highland sheep in Peru by the Visvim design team. And what they actually do is they flew it back to Japan to be naturally dyed through their sort of trademark processes, whether that's indigo dyeing, mud dyeing, cochineal dyeing, which is like crushed beetles basically, and then also natural veggie dyeing, which I think is how they got this yellow color. If you look at it, it actually features a Riri zipper with this sort of leather pull tab on it. I also really enjoy the woven in pockets that you get on it. You just have two front pockets that are also crocheted in. In terms of the wool variant, there's actually no photos besides the one I'm holding in my hand on the entire internet. It's not in the lookbook. It's also a size 5, which just makes it even harder to track down. And so I actually bought this from a guy selling it on Grailed, and I had been wanting it for a very long time, saving. And when I got it, it actually had a bunch of snagging and holes and was not in the condition that it was claimed to have been in. It's definitely a bummer, but at the same time, I look at it as a way that maybe down the road I can mend it, fix it up. The only issue is that you get these yarns out of it with natural dye on it, and I don't really have a way of getting the matching naturally dyed yarns. I'm sure I can buy Highland wool yarn on Etsy or something and try and fix it, but with the zigzag and everything, it might not look perfect, which is okay, but it really stinks because in terms of that transaction on Grailed, I actually was only given the option of getting a refund, which would have been, he wanted me to send the item back before he sent my money back, which on such a high ticket item, does not make sense. Do not do that, especially after they lied once to you. And my other option was just keeping it and eating the cost, which is what I've opted to do because, you know, if you return it, you will never find it again in terms of an item like this. I gave him a lot of opportunity to make things right and he just chose not to. So that really sucks, and that is totally a risk of buying online. And so I just think that this is such a great example of Visvim's anthropological fashion they sort of do, where they're not trying to create that sort of crocheting in-house in Japan. Instead, Hiroki finds somewhere that does it the best, and he works to provide the best materials with the best dyeing techniques, and you have this sort of like magnum opus of a crocheted zip-up sweater in its like most 100% like insanity sort of form, where it's had this crazy process behind it. You know, mud dyeing only takes place on one island in Japan. The cochineal dyeing is super difficult. It is cheap, but in order to get a red this dark, you have to spend loads and loads of money to dye it more and more and more, and that's sort of the process behind making it. And I just appreciate the fact that, you know, not only is this rare, but there's a really sort of history to the item in terms of production and not just necessarily like the vision behind the designer. So in terms of anthropological fashion, I have probably why you clicked on this video, and that would be the Garibou naturally dyed Black Elk Flannel that Visvim offers, and this is from their fall winter 19 spot drop. Huge shout out to Visvim trading post Matt, just an excellent resource for all Visvim information. Reach out to him if you ever have any questions. So this is actually an FIL exclusive, which is sort of like the Visvim stores in Japan. At least some of them are FIL locations, and those are the stores that they don't play any music in it. It's very museum-like and spaceshipy almost. So while it was FIL exclusive, there were a couple pieces put online. I bought this used. The construction on this that makes it so expensive is called Garibou, and it is something invented in the late Meiji period of Japan that actually spins the yarn in this way that requires an active craftsperson to monitor it at all times, sort of to counterbalance the cotton as it's being spun, because as the cotton spins, the yarn sort of thickens. It detaches itself from the spinning gear and temporarily stops rotating, and then it thins out and drops back down, and that's sort of how you get this slubby sort of gradient texture throughout the piece. But that counterweight sort of serves as a way of adjusting as the cotton slowly decreases. And what makes this piece even more special is that it is also the pink variant, which is the cochineal version. It also is this really sort of like pinkish hue that it either looks oatmeal or pink depending on what light you're looking at it in. You have crushed beetles going into making this as well, and it's this really sort of like hands-on artisanal technique to making a flannel. In terms of the Garibou production rate, there's only about 10 kilograms possible to be made in a day of Garibou fabric, which equates to roughly like 25 sheets of a large stole. And so that's extremely limited in comparison to modern day production capacities. There's only 1 mill left in the entire world. So you have these buffalo horn buttons on it, as you can see here. And then you also have the Visvim hand stitch detail in the back. For $4,000, would I necessarily pay that price for what it is? No, absolutely not. Do I think it's special and unique and will someday hold a value because of that? Yes. And that's really what I want to get into with Visvim. It's important to not act as though Hiroki and his team are gods. They do something that has special and unique properties in the world of fashion, which is often sort of like a copy-paste trend culture. I think Visvim really deviates and just does their own thing in the best execution possible, which, as someone who has been consuming fashion for a decade, because this is something that's sort of an anomaly in that process of trend chasing. I think that Hiroki and the design team at Visvim as a whole, they need their flowers for what they do, because not enough people recognize the sort of production that they choose to chase after. and that they try and replicate with multiple pieces, but there's no need for someone to be sort of snobby about that. And that's what I want to do through this channel, is just provide information about the products, because so often you get gatekept almost from understanding something like that. In terms of Visvim pricing, which I think is probably the most important part about the brand's sort of barrier to entry, I really implore you to try and buy used as much as possible. A $4,000 flannel gets a lot cheaper once it's been used. To afford these 3 things, I actually sold upwards of 40 things on Grailed and eBay, Instagram, etc. And I put those money into 3 things that I really wanted, 2 of them basically being some of the most incredible pieces I think Visvim has ever made, and true grails. I'm even trying to sell more now to downsize my wardrobe and just own more of these significant products that I believe will hold a lot more value in the future, both in price, but also just in terms of the production behind it and the effort that went into making it. It's something super unique that I can see basically, you know, being displayed in a museum or an exhibit down the road. I really want to wear them and characterize them over the years, because that's part of like the idea behind Visvim. If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. So if you liked this, leave a comment about what your favorite piece was, like the video, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.